Okay, everyone, we are going to now go over the addendum to our listing contract. Um, this has had some confusion, and I want to eliminate that confusion for all of us. So when we list a house, as you remember, on our listing agreement, the RMLS listing agreement, nowhere does it say anywhere about buyer broker compensation. So John L. Scott came up with this addendum that we would talk with our seller about as we're filling out our paperwork about whether or not they would like to offer compensation for a buyer broker. Uh, you have to emphasize that they're not required to offer anything. That's very important. That's all part of that whole lawsuit. So keep that in mind. But the first paragraph in this, after you fill out the top, the first paragraph where I think brings the most heartburn for whatever reason is this first paragraph about the unrepresented buyer. What does this paragraph mean and how do we fill it out? So this particular paragraph is dealing only with the listing compensation. So if a buyer calls you off your flyer or a website, your ad, whatever, they reach out to you and say, I want to write an offer on this property. I don't want to be represented. I don't have a broker. I don't want you to be my broker, but I want you to write the deal. So you tell your seller, hey, in the event a buyer calls me and wants that type of service, I'm going to end up doing both sides of the transaction. I'm only representing you, Mr. Seller. However, I think I should be compensated for the work I'm going to do on the other side. So I'm going to write the offer. I'm going to open escrow. I'm going to go to the home inspection. I'm going to help them fill out their 35R. I'm going to help them with their appraiser. I'm going to talk with their lender. There's a lot of work you're going to do. You're doing both sides. So what do you do in that case then? What do you do about this particular paragraph? Well, all they're asking for is what your listing compensation will now become in the event you are doing both sides. So if you had 3% on your listing agreement in the RMLS, and you're going to do both sides here, only get paid and represent one side, you're going to maybe charge 4% instead. Okay, your listing fee just increased. They leave this other blank here, which is kind of annoying, but this is if you did it for money. Let's say you're doing the listing fees 10 grand and now you're going to do both sides. Now maybe you'll say, I'll do 15,000. But most of us, as you know, work with percentages. So this is my overall listing fee if I have to write the deal and represent the seller only and take care of the entire transaction. Okay. The second paragraph, let me just make my window a little bigger. The buyer broker compensation. This is now, Mr. Seller, how much do you want to offer a buyer broker? As you know, a buyer, when they get a loan to buy a house, they have closing costs, they have a down payment they have to put down. And now, because of the way things have changed in our industry, now the buyer and the buyer broker have to determine what the buyer is going to pay the broker for their services. So this is an opportunity for you, Mr. Seller, to make sure that they have a representation and that you're willing to help make the deal come together. You're willing to actually throw some money towards that buyer broker's compensation. A lot of folks are checking this first box. There's going to be three options. This first box says, I'm going to offer blank. So, you know, you can offer whatever you like here. What I've seen out a lot of the listings recently is two and a quarter. I've seen some 2.5s. So you decide what you want to do there, 2.25. Now, let's say you don't want to offer a number. Maybe it'd be better for you if you unchecked that paragraph, moved on to the next page, and you'll see another box that you can check. I'm seeing a lot of this, Mr. Seller, where we're just suggesting to the buyer, we're not giving you a number. Maybe the buyer is only going to ask for 2%. So if you offer 2.25, you just gave more than you needed to. So we'll just let them ask for what they want, and just keep in mind, if they ask for 3, you don't have to agree to it. We're going to counter it. So whatever we talk about based on the kind of offer they give, maybe it's a fantastic offer. Maybe it's 5,000 more. Maybe it's all cash, and maybe the buyer broker's asking for 3%, and you think to yourself, "Hey, I'll pay the 3%. This is a great deal." So that way you can negotiate. So that's what the second box is. And then the third box, remember, you can decline to offer anything. So maybe you've got a house that's going to sell like instantly, and you're going to have 20 people fighting over it. Maybe you think to yourself, "I don't want to offer anything." So you could put right here, "I'm not offering any compensation." Just know that the buyer broker is going to call me and they're going to say, "Is your seller not offering compensation?" And I'm going to tell them one of these three answers. Okay, so be prepared. I will say none. So now that buyer broker has to decide, does the buyer have the money to pay him his fee? And they may or may not write the offer. Okay, so keep that in mind. The other thing in this section here that I want you to talk about is paragraph B of this first section. If you are going to be a dual agent, this I've seen confused by a lot of you brokers. This is only asking for what you're going to make on the buy side. So currently, let's say that they're paying 2.25, and a buyer calls you and wants you to represent them, and your seller's okay with you doing dual agent. What do you want the seller to pay you for representing that buyer? 1, maybe all 2.5, 2.25 that they're offering up here. Usually we do both sides in a dual agent. I've seen people will do a little bit of a discount for the seller. So maybe you'll do both sides for an additional, instead of charging 2.25, maybe you only do 1.25. Okay. This is not a total amount between your listing side and your buy side. You're never going to do that on these forms. There's never a total amount. Okay. You're getting a listing compensation and you're getting a buyer compensation. The twain shall never meet. Okay. So that's what this is for. This should not say 2.75 plus 1.25 to make it 4. This is just what you're earning on the buy side. Because remember, you should have a buyer brokerage agreement with the buyer as well. And maybe they've agreed to pay you 2% or 2.25. But maybe on that form it also says, but I'm only going to pay you 1.25 if it's a dual agent situation. So this should match, if you're writing your own deal, what you have on your buyer broker compensation. I hope that makes sense. I think it does, but it's not terribly complicated. Just remember, you got to check one of the 3 paragraphs, not 2, not 3, just 1, and go with that. If you're going to do this, you can publish this on your John L. Scott website so other brokers can pull it up. Somebody can look online and see exactly what kind of compensations you're offering. So that's the way we market that number. All right. Any other questions? Please contact David or myself. We'd love to help you through this, but I think this is pretty easy. I think you can do it. All right. We'll see you later.